And welcome to my next video tutorial, which is going to be focused on integrating template partials within Django. So before we get started, I just want to explain a little bit on template partials and how we will utilize them in Django. So essentially, template partials are reusable pieces of a template. Try to think of them like small components that you can define once and use anywhere in your project. So this helps to keep your templates more modular, clean, and maintainable. So in Django terms, we will create a components.html file within our templates directory to define our partial templates, or our partials, you could say, known as our navigation section, a button, and a card for testing, and then we're going to include them in our index.html as a test. So let's get started. Now, the first thing you want to make sure is that you have a simple Django project as always up and running. So as you can see, I have one here set up and ready to go. I also have a templates directory defined at the app level. So within templates, I have a sub directory called CRM with my HTML files here in place. So make sure that you have something resembling something of the sort. Okay, next let's go ahead and set up Django template partials. So we can copy the following and we can stop our terminal and we can just say pip install Django template partials. All right, so I already have it installed, so it might just take a moment or so. But once it's been set up for you, what you can do next is you can go on ahead and ensure that you add in template partials to your list of installed apps. So here I have it here, the template partials. And let me go to my settings.py file. And here under my list of installed apps, I'll just add that down here at the bottom. That's perfectly fine. And that's all that you need to do to really get the base set up and started. Okay, so make sure you have that set. Now, I just want to evaluate what I currently have and what I want to achieve before we define our partial templates. So I want to go to my index.html file as a test, and as you can see here, I have some code. So I have my HTML tags. I have my h1 tags just saying this is the home page, and I have two links here with a breaking point. So what I want to do now is I want to remove this code, and I'm just going to paste it somewhere for now. And I'm just going to leave it empty and blank because I want to define my partials to add in specific components. Okay, right. So the next thing that I want to do now is I want to go on ahead and create a folder called partials. So you can see here I have a folder called CRM, but I want to create one called partials. So I'm going to right click on templates, say new folder, and I'm going to call this partials. Right, and we can see they're both on the same level. And within my partials directory, I want to define a file known as components. So here I'll host individual components. Very similar, you could say, like in front-end development, like in React, Vue.js, etc., when you have components for your project. So it's very similar to what we're doing here. So we can then right-click on partials, say new file, and I'm going to call this components.html, just like that. Okay. Now, let's get started. The first thing that you want to do is you want to say load partials. So you'll set up your tags like so, say load partials. And with this line of code here, we are loading our partial tags to define the reusable components that we want to set up. Okay. Now we want to define our very first partial template. Okay, so it's going to look very fragmented. So again, we'll open up our tag, and to define a partial template, we want to say partial def, and then you want to give it a name. So the name should, you could say, sum up what you are defining here. So here I'm going to define a navigation section. So I'll say nav section, close that up. And then before I put code in it, I want to end it. So you want to say end partial. So it's very similar to when you are setting up your for loop and closing your for loop, similar sort of way about it. And here we want to define the code that we want to, you could say, set up as a component. So the nav section means I'm going to add in this navigation information that I had here before. And there we have it. So this is defined as my very first partial template, and this is hosting all of the navigation code for my project in place. All right, now let's define 2 more partial templates. Okay, so I'm just going to add some space. There we go. And zoom in. Right, so I'm just going to go ahead and copy the following. So partial def, and then the end. And then we just want to switch the name. So next, I just want to define a simple button just for test. Just for a test, you could say. And here, I just want to say button, click me. That's all I want to do. I just want to give you the general idea. You can, of course, customize as you go. So that's our second partial template. Do one more. Okay, so see the name is called button to refer to this partial template, and this name is nav section to refer to this partial template. So remember, the naming is important because that's how you'll reference them. Next, I'm going to define a card. So this card is just going to have some simple information, and this will be defined within a div. So I'll say div class, and this will be card, and that's fine. And then here, I'm just going to say h3 and just say this is important info. And then I'll add in a paragraph tag here that says, just close that up. That says, let's go with consistent templates, partial templates. Okay, I'm just putting anything in here, that's fine. Okay, and there we have our third partial template completed. All right, so that's how we can go ahead and set these up. So well done on setting up your partial templates. All right, so now that we have them, we need to decide now where we want to utilize them. So I want to utilize them in my home page here. So as you can see, if I run my server, let's just wait for that. And we can see we have nothing there. So that's because, if you recall from earlier, in the index.html file, we have nothing set up in place. Okay, so what we want to do now is we want to reference them. Okay, so the first thing that you need to do is, let me just adjust this, is you want to say load partials. Okay, very important. So you can utilize your partial templates. And that's going to be important to load the partials to use the components from this file here. Now, let's say I just want to utilize one component. I don't want to use everything in this file. Now, you can see in this manner, you don't need to go on ahead and specifically include or extend files to include everything in the file or to extend it. You're just using a snippet. And this is where it's important and into how you set it up. And this is also where the value comes in, where you're not essentially just including everything from a page or extending on it. You're just borrowing a snippet of code that you want to include in your index.html file, and it's just a small piece, okay, from one file. You don't need to make individual files, so you can kind of see the benefits here as we go. Okay, so nav section, I just want to utilize that. Now, the first thing I need to do is include it. So I will say include in these tags here, and we want to see where the file is, components.html. So the folder is partials, so I'll say include and in double quotes, and I just want to add in the percentage symbol, so it will be partials referring to the folder here. So automatically, if you're using app level templates, you don't need to refer to templates here itself. It will automatically check in there for you. And then you need to refer to a subdirectory if you included one. So here I have one called partials and then / referring to the exact file name that you want to utilize, which is components, which is where all of our partial templates are housed. So you can say components.html. Okay, and that's how you'll reference them. Perfect. Okay. Now the important part is the referencing. So remember, I said remember to keep in mind the name that you associated here. So this is like a reference, and this is called nav section. So what you would need to do is within the quotes here and after HTML, you want to refer to it. So you want to say nav bar section. and that is the name. Oh goodness me. Components, excuse me, .html, and let's copy that. There we go. Okay, so now we have it set up. So you just want to add after the HTML, you want to add hashtag nav section, and that is corresponding with what we set up here. So now it's only going to load the navigation section now. So if we go back and we can just restart our server. And refresh. There we have it. So now it's only showing our navigation section here as we desire. Let's say we only want to now see the card as well. We want to see the card. We don't want to see the button. So we can just copy this here exactly as is, and it was card. You just need to now just refer to that name after the hashtag and refresh. There we go. This is important info, consistent partial template. And that also is included. And of course, if you want to add all of it, you can do just that. And that partial is button. So we can just refer to button here. And refresh. Okay, so that doesn't look as grand, but I mean, you get the gist here. So that is how we can go ahead and include certain components and separate them. Now, of course, you don't need to just use this for index.html. You can use this wherever you would like. So let's say, for example, I want to make it clearer in a sense of having the option to register and log in, or if there's a particular banner I want to have across all pages, which can be useful. So for example, let's say I wanted to, let's just remove this button here. And under the component, I have like a footer, for example. And here I'm just going to say footer. This website is currently under development. Okay, and we can just refresh. Okay, there we go. Now let's say I want this to appear on other pages as well. So let's say the registration page and the login page, for example. And what I can also do, just to make it a bit nicer or appealing, I can just put a horizontal line. Okay, there we go. Right, so here in my application, I have a registration page. And I can add this there as well, and I have a login page. I can now go ahead and just load my partials and then just load this card part here, which I can actually adjust the name to make it a little bit more appealing. And I can just say here footer, and the reference name is footer. Okay, you can see it still keeps that name. Even if I reload, it should be fine. Yeah, it's okay. And now register and login. So let's go ahead and deal with those. So I have a login page and I have a registration page. Let's swap them there. Okay, so here I have some code already. So I'm going to go to index.html, and here I have load partials. So I'll just load that at the top. And I just have my footer. So I'll go to register, and right at the bottom, I'll add the footer there. So I have load partials, and I'm including that particular component. And now if I refresh, we can now see I have that footer right there at the bottom, set up and ready to go, nice and clean. And of course it can coexist, so it can be on multiple templates at the same time, as you can see. Now let's do the login as well, just for good measure. So at the top, I need to add load partials. Okay, and then I can add in that footer right there as well. And there we can see it's available too. All right, so there we have it. That is how you can go on ahead and utilize partial templates within your Django applications. And you can see it's working really nicely. And that is how you can go ahead and set that up accordingly. So I'll just go ahead and close these, and that's how you can go ahead and set that up. Alright, so that is the main concept when it comes to partial templates. You can also make dynamic partial templates as well, where you have some text that of course is being defined at a later stage, for example. Now, what I want to do is define this here on the index.html page. Let's see if this is loading. Yeah, okay. And I remember I had a button that I defined here earlier. And what I can do is just re-add that, you could say. So I'll just actually remove the navigation bar for now and just refer to this as button. So we have a button here that says click me, but let's see if we can make this dynamic. So what you're going to want to do is let's move this code here. So this is just for a partial template. To make it dynamic, we will need to alter it. So again, you will keep the button here as the name that you're referring to it as. And then right next to it, you can just add in text. And this is kind of going to be a variable or a placeholder of sorts in a way. And then right next to click me, you can go on ahead and just say text. Okay, so this is going to add as kind of a placeholder. And now if you were to head on to index.html, you would need to adjust how you are referencing your button partial template. So what you're going to want to do is right around it, you want to add in a with block. So I'll show you here. So you would add in the tags with text equals, and I'm going to say space now, and then close that up. And then you want to wrap it around your include statement and then say end with. So you're adding a with statement. So now if we go and we can just refresh, it says click me now. So what we've essentially done is we've gone ahead and defined our partial template. We've made it dynamic by adding a placeholder of sorts known as text, which as we can see here, it's going to be a variable. And it's still going to say click me because that's been hard coded. However, the value that we are expecting to be placed in this partial template, it's only going to be received with this with statement here, which the text is going to be equals to now, which of course is going to grab the partial template and it's going to insert this now part with the text right next to the HTML code that we've defined here as the variable. It's going to insert that value. So that is how you can go on ahead and make your components more dynamic and reusable. Now, of course, there's many other ways in which you can implement it, but this is just a simple example of how you can go on ahead and utilize dynamic partials. Okay. Right guys, so that is it for this video tutorial on how you can go ahead and utilize partial templates within your Django application. And yes, so that's it guys, and as always, thank you for the support, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye, and thank you again.